Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Surviving, the safe space for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to receive support, resources, and share their stories. Beyond Surviving is about freedom, healing, connection, and even laughter and fun. Most importantly, it's about letting go of the pain of abuse and finally moving on. I'm Rachel Grant, and I've been a sexual abuse recovery coach since 2007, and I'm the author of Beyond Surviving, the final stage of recovery from sexual abuse. You can learn more about me and the Beyond Surviving program at rachelgrantcoaching.com. Folks, I'm so excited to have here with me today my guest, Keeper Catran-Whitney, and he is going to be sharing with us about a super duper important topic that I'm kind of kicking my butt in the pants for not having had more awareness around up until this time. But he is going to be sharing with us about the pain that's felt when, brothers are silenced and left out of the conversation about trauma, when a sibling is abused. And so it's a deep topic, it's an important topic. And Keeper is really here to share about his journey and his experience and to just raise some awareness about this. And I have to tell you all that he has journeyed, okay? He's seen some stuff. Okay, from being a drummer and a singer with his family, the Whitney family. Yes, you can find them on YouTube and check out some of their songs, performing around the world and oh my gosh, going to so many different schools and also homelessness, all
Wow.
the way to, this place today of being an author and an advocate and a voice. His book that's coming out is Helplessness, the Hidden Trauma Brothers Experience Once We Learn Our Sisters Have Been Sexually Abused by Our Parents. Uh, and, he was really inspired to write this book after hitting dead end after dead end of finding content and resources on this topic. And I'm no stranger to that. So much of my work was born out of a place of frustration of like, oh, there's
Mm.
just nothing out there that's like what I needed to be. And this is just part one of a 3-part series. So please be sure to follow Keeper and stay, on top of what he's doing out in the world. He is married to a wonderful Jewish woman, Patty, and they have a daughter, Sydney,
Wow.
and a son, B, and a wonderful daughter-in-law, Tomi, who is Japanese. And oh, they have a German Shepherd. That was my first dog ever, was a German Shepherd. Love them. Oh, but German Shepherd mix husky, Logan. And yeah, he's kicking around in Southern California and is just here with us today to share his experience and his story. And we may even get into Harry Potter because I know you're a fan, and me
Oh,
too.
wow. You have done some homework. Yes,
Keeper,
yes.
welcome, hun. Oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh. So, yeah, when I got your email and started reading a bit more about what you've been up to in the world and the conversations that you're wanting to start about this topic, I was like, immediate yes, like, yeah, of course, no brainer, have to have you on. And so let's get into your story and your journey a little bit.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our conversation is going to be through the lens of being a sibling to someone who was experienced abuse, but I know that you also experienced abuse yourself. And so there are layers here. There are pieces that we really want to kind of unpack, but maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about your journey.
Well, first of all, let me say, Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Your story is quite a story in and of itself. So thank you. I do want to say, I do want to get a shout out to my daughter, Sydney, who will say, you mentioned B, you mentioned Tommy, but no one mentioned me. So my daughter, Sydney, is as well.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness, I took her name off. Okay. Yeah,
She will let me hear about it. That's for sure.
Sydney, what's up? We see you, we hear you. Making sure we shout out to Sydney. Good.
Okay, my story as a brother, when our sisters are sexually abused and we hear about it, we learn about it, we are, for the most part, completely left out of the conversation. It is as though our emotional trauma behind the knowledge of that doesn't exist. And it does, and it's very real. And so that is what I have been up to. As far as I can tell, Rachel, I am the only one talking about elevating the voices of brothers in the child sexual abuse space from the standpoint of being collateral damage, if you will, because of what we have now learned. We might not be the direct victim of the abuse, but we are victims nonetheless. And so there is a place that I feel brothers should be part of the conversation. I will tell you how it all rolled out for me.
Yeah.
In 1971, in Los Angeles, we had started singing because we needed to make some extra money. We were very poor. And you mentioned a number of schools I went to. I went to 11, 12 different grade schools before I graduated high school. We lived in 21 different places. I was homeless 3 times. And so we were constantly trying to figure out ways to make money. And our mother, who had started singing and come from a very, very good singing family, asked if we kids wanted to sing with her. I have 3 brothers and 4 sisters that are, they're not half brothers and sisters. I have another 16 half brothers and sisters. So we started singing, which was great. And as we started doing so, we became very popular in Los Angeles, to the point that one day we got a call while we were rehearsing, and it was Michael Jackson from the Jackson 5, wanting to let us know that I've heard about you guys should keep going. Do not quit. They were like, Michael Jackson's calling our house to talk to us. You have got to be kidding.
Yeah.
The soon to be king of pop.
Oof.
So jump cut 6 years later in 1977.
Yeah.
We have been picked by Motown to replace Michael Jackson and Jackson 5 after they lost him to Epic Records.
Yep.
So a family meeting was called to let us know what day that week we were going to sign the contract. I mean, we were gone. Fame and fortune, here we come. No longer being impoverished. All that stuff was gone away. So my sister screams upstairs, Keeper, James, Daryl, Aaron, come downstairs, family meeting. Like, cool, this is it. We're on our way. I get into the living room. My 3 youngest sisters are sitting on the couch. My oldest sister is pacing the archway, and she's very angry. I don't know why, because this is supposed to be a joyous occasion.
Yeah.
My 3 other brothers are already in the living room as well. But I walk in and I'm thinking, I don't know what everyone's upset about. My mother and my stepfather then walk in. And my stepfather goes and he sits down in a brown recliner. And he immediately bends over and does this.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm
Covers his eyes
thinking,
up. Yeah. Covers his
wait a
face.
minute, is he sick or something? This doesn't make sense.
Right.
So my mother walks to the front of the room, and she's a very bubbly person, effervescent, just constant, energy. But this time she's stoic. She didn't say a word. And then she says the words no brother could ever prepare for, the words no brother could ever comprehend what they would hear. She says, your stepfather, Willie, has been molesting your sisters. And we're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Wait
How
a minute,
old were
say
you,
that
Keeper?
again. At the time, 16.
16. Okay. Yeah.
And
Man.
then she says, I have known all along.
Oh my gosh.
Everything about my family, as tight as we were, because we were very tight, everything that I believe my family to be lay in shambles on the living room floor.
Yeah.
Now, the odd part about this, Rachel, is of the 10 people coming to the meeting, only 4 had no idea what the meeting was about. My 4 sisters knew. My mother and my stepdad, they all knew. Obviously, my sisters, because they had already been experiencing the trauma of it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring that up, because as sad as that is, they had a chance to prepare for what was coming, what was about to be said.
Right.
We 4 boys, we had no clue. everything just broke. And at that point, after hearing that, my oldest sister, and I'm really cutting out a lot of things here because I know there's a lot we want to get to, spun around and pointed at us four boys and said, "You can't talk about it ever. It didn't happen to you. It only happened to us girls." But the reality is it did happen to us.
It sure did. Wow.
And I understand why my sister did that. She's got to protect herself. She's got to protect her younger sisters. But it did happen to us. And as soon as we found out, we were victims, and we now were carrying a burden. But because she said we couldn't talk to them, the people we needed to speak to the most just told us they wanted nothing to do with us.
Right.
And so we were silenced. There was no place for us to go. There was no one for us to talk to. And as a brother, what do you do? What do you go with this? Because as time went by, we would hear whispers. How come you didn't say anything? How come you didn't protect us? How come you didn't know? How come it's like, we had no idea. But that didn't mean we weren't going to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so as a brother, what do? There's really no place that you can go. There are no books, there are no documentaries, there are no movies, there are no talk shows, there are no People magazine interviews about brothers. We can get a magazine interview by a man who has been sexually abused, of which I know, because 6 years before my sisters were sexually abused, me and my older brother were sexually abused by our babysitter almost daily for 6 months. So the sexual abuse coin, I'm on both sides. I am the direct victim and I am the indirect victim. So I understand both.
Yeah.
So there's just nothing out there for brothers. And I've spoken to so many men over the years, and they are like me. I couldn't say anything. There was no place for me to go. My sisters want nothing to do with me. And I'm carrying this. And I know of sisters who've told me 3 that their brothers have committed suicide once they found out because they weren't there to protect them. But if we don't know, we don't know, but we still carry this trauma.
Yeah. Keeper, thank you for sharing, your story with us. And I know there are other layers and other pieces to it. And what I'm really present to is kind of that, just the immediacy. Like I can feel myself in that living room. I can feel that moment of shock of the news, being dropped at your feet. And before you've even consolidated it, integrated, made sense of it, you're being told, you don't get to speak about this. You don't, and in many ways, it's, you don't get to feel about this. You don't get to have opinions about this. And it also shuts down even potentially being a support and a resource.
Yeah.
And then the place in which that sense of kind of blame echoes over here, this idea, whether internal or like the voices outside of you. And then you don't have any recourse to even engage in that conversation. Correct. Because it's just silencing. Yeah.
Yes. We are, from my sister's perspective, we were viewed more guilty than my stepfather because we didn't know. And we are only guilty just by proximity of gender because we are male like him.
That projection happens.
And that made us guilty. And as I began to look around and try to find, as you mentioned in the opening, there is nothing for brothers, even to this day. There are
there is now, honey, because you are on the scene.
I am.
You're creating the conversation. You're creating the resources. You're making it exist. And I think that's powerful and admirable. But it comes out of decades of being in a silo, being, unsupported. And while there might have been resources to support you around healing your sexual trauma, the secondary trauma, the indirect trauma, as you named it, still sits there
Yeah.
and, impacts the way that can you speak to that a little bit? Like the impact on you? How did that affect your life to be put in that position?
To be put in that position, the impact really cut to the core of my self-esteem and my self-worth,
I see. Yeah.
because it was essentially stripped away. To be told
Yeah.
I can't talk about it was being told I don't matter. What my
Mhm.
thoughts are don't matter. Essentially, we four boys and other men who have had to deal with the same thing, we don't matter. And so to know that you want to do something, you want to have the conversation, but then you can't. There is a quote that I really like, and it goes something like this, and I'll just paraphrase. What it means to be a brother is being able to protect the honor of your sisters. That's what it means to be a brother, which I really like. And not being able to protect their honor. And I have to tell you, it took me quite a while to figure out what I was going to do, because there were some days when it was just really dark. The vivid imaginings of what happened to my sister beginning in 1971 when we started singing, imagining my sisters being pulled into a closet, imagine my sisters being brought into my mother and father's bedroom, and in talking to my sisters about it, they have told me what I imagined it to be was exactly what it was. And so knowing that I'm dealing with this, and because we were singing, there would be certain songs that would just cut to the core of what I was feeling. And if I'm driving, or if I'm watching TV, or if I'm just talking to someone or seeing an article, it just immediately pulls me down. And I had to try to figure out a way to find hope in the middle of all this. My sisters, our mother said she was going to handle it. And so my brothers and I took a step back. She did not handle it for 9 years.
Oh, goodness.
And so as a brother, as we're getting older, we're like, well, wait a minute. You said you were going to handle this, and yet we're still trying to figure out a way how to get out of poverty. And knowing all along, even though our sisters don't want to hear from us, we need to do something. So in 1986, 3 months before I got married, I went to a very dark place. The only thing I could think of leading up to my wedding was, I have got to get this man out of the house from being around my sisters. If I don't do that, I am not going to get married.
Yeah.
So about a few weeks before I got married, I was pacing in my bedroom and waiting for my stepfather to come out of another bedroom. And when he did, we met at the top of the hall, at the top of the stairs in the hallway. And I gave him, he's 6'6" at the time, 240 pounds. I'm 5'8", 140 pounds. He outweighs me about, 100 pounds. But I gave him, I said, you have 24 hours to leave this house, because if you are still here by this time tomorrow, you will be dead, because I will have killed you.
Yeah.
I had the instrument of his death in my bedroom. Either he was going to be dead in 24 hours, or I was going to be dead, which would have made the matters much, much worse for everybody. But I wasn't thinking there. But as a brother, that's where I went.
Yeah.
With all of this. And so I almost killed a man over this, over the lack of, I just felt that I needed to bring some sort of closure for my sisters, but that was the wrong closure. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Well, what this makes me think of is just the place in which when we feel cornered, when we feel helpless, when we feel like we've been stripped of agency, it breeds desperation.
Sure.
Right. And so, the ways in which, like, it all makes very much good sense to me that you would reach that point. And I'm glad it didn't come to play, that it didn't go down that road, but to feel that sense of desperation and also just deep anger, when you've not been given any safe space to process your feelings. And that means, therefore, you've had to suppress and repress and push it away and push it away and push it away. At some point, like, it's going to hit a boiling point and it's going to
Sure.
come out, and not always in the best ways. But that's why having a voice and having a say is so critical for people who have experienced trauma, and 100% for the people who are in the orbit of the people who have experienced the trauma,
Well,
because it is. Hmm.
it's as though brothers are inconvenient truth in the conversation. You know, we
Mm,
know that they're there. They know we exist, but no one wants to. We must keep it a secret because, after all, we're talking about boys, men,
mm,
and
yeah.
we have mental health and we have mental illness. They're two different things. We need to deal with the mental health aspect of this. We are not
Yeah.
an inconvenient truth. We are not a taboo when a subject in the umbrella conversation of child sexual abuse. We are real. We are here, and we need to be able to express it because those boys, in our case, grow up to be men. And how we
Mhm.
treat women and girls will be directly impacted by the support we do not get or that we do get. And
Yeah.
so it becomes a community conversation. It becomes a community need that brothers have the ability to express what they're dealing with and find support and have tools created for us.
100%. 100%. Do you think that, so you said something there that I want to ping off of, which is that part of the reason why there's this silencing, particularly of brothers, is because of the gendering that's happening. So we have a male perpetrator, and
Mhm.
so there's this collapsing rather than separation of, individuals. You get kind of lumped in. So do
Yeah.
you think that because of that, we don't see the same dynamics happening when, let's say, it's a brother and it's a sister sibling who's the secondary, trauma,
Mhm.
or, two brothers or two sisters? There's a very specific dynamic here that you're speaking to.
Yes.
Do I have that right?
Yes, I think you're absolutely correct. And to be fair, I think it's natural because historically, men, the way we have treated women, have created that narrative, have created that
Mm,
expectancy.
mm,
And so
mm.
I'm not a bit surprised, and no one should be surprised. However, that does not mean the need for brothers and support for brothers should be absent. Uh,
Agreed. Yeah,
Men,
for
we
sure.
grow up in an environment where we're expected to be strong, where we're expected to not
Mm,
show frailty in any way, to be expected to not be vulnerable. But that is so wrong because that only creates toxic masculinity.
yeah.
And we need to be able to express how we are feeling about, especially something like this when it involves our sisters,
Mm, mhm.
because the narrative is, how do I say this? The narrative is not controlled by men in any way when it comes to sexual abuse. And it shouldn't be, but we should be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
We are at a point where, instead of creating allyships between those innocent brothers and men who can not only support and help women, we have a situation where we're more like enemies in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you're immediately labeled and defined as, and I
Yeah.
would speak like that. The job for, us ladies on the other side of the aisle here is that we must not be immediately ready to label and define a man as unsafe, perpetrator, destructive, purely because of gender. It kind of goes, it's really a little bit of the work. Even though women have experienced trauma, even though we hold that, right, there has to be, in order to become allies, right, there are things that are happening on both sides of the aisle. And I think for women to be able to say, this is the person who harmed me,
Mhm.
and this is the person who wants to love and support me. and to be able to see that distinction. And there's some work that has to be done in order to do that. But the pathway to that is conversation and communication, rather than this kind of separation and silencing. And you go over there and you deal with your stuff, and we'll be over here and we'll deal with our stuff. Instead, how do we come together? And that's, I know that that's one of the big things that you care so much about, is how sisters and brothers become allies. How do we break this cycle? How do we break these patterns? What do you think are some of the steps that have to be taken in order to get there?
Well, I think as it relates to brothers, one of the things that we have to do is be able to admit that we are in trauma, that we are in crisis. Because without that acceptance, any chance of healing is almost impossible. You have to be able to accept, and that's a hard thing, because we have been conditioned to not say that, to not have that be part of who we are. But that's a reality, because like DNA, our trauma will self-replicate like DNA, and it will manifest itself in other areas of our life that we are not aware of or even understand that are happening. So we have to accept this as a reality. Then for brothers, we need to be able to find someone to talk to. And this is what you're talking about, having that conversation. Now, will it be probably with a woman initially? Probably not. But you have to find some guy, find someone that you can talk to that will allow you to express and release some of the trauma. There is many different ways that you can go about it, but the greater way is one-on-one is great. There's no question about it. But it needs to be part of a community. It needs to be healing by community.
Collective conversation, yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And as I said, for sisters and women, I get it. I really do get it. Of the eight children in my family, 7 of us have suffered sexual abuse. That's an incredible number. And yet the ratio of women compared to men, my older brother says it best, I think. To be a woman in this world, you are a target every day of your life. Yeah, men, we have our challenges, but compared to a woman, it's not even close. But that doesn't mean brothers should be left out of the conversation once we learn what's going on, because now we are traumatized. And for me, mine started to take on PTSD type of characteristics, which I think is what happens for a lot of brothers in this conversation. So how do we get brothers into the conversation so we're not left out, so we can get the type of support that we need? This is what I am searching for.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I just thought of as you were sharing that is one of the very first lessons in Beyond Surviving is trauma is not a competition. And I'm really working, with my clients to say, whatever your experience is, it matters. And so while there's a place that we sit, I think it's beautiful the way that you sit in an acknowledgement of the weariness that women feel, the challenge that women feel going out into the world, and that is real, and it is big, and it is every day. And the experiences that you've had as a man and as a brother are just as important. And so there has to be this way that we hold space for all of the experiences, because otherwise we do get this dialogue of well, what do you know? You don't know what it's like to be a woman. You're not dealing with this.
Right. I've had that a couple of times. I've sat down with a few women to tell them about the experience of brothers, and within 30 seconds they say, you can't talk about it. You don't understand. You brothers don't have a say. It's not until I tell them, well, I was sexually abused, and then they kind of stop and say, oh, I didn't know. But that's just the point. You shouldn't have to
Yeah, it shouldn't
know.
have to be that.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
But
The
that's but the reason that is because of what men had done, and
Mhm.
women are protecting themselves. It's not the fault of women with that particular aspect of this conversation. Men have created that environment. And so the narrative, and justifiably so, is controlled by women.
Mm.
And the there can be tremendous allyship here, and we can help each other. To expand the support for women can include those innocent men who are willing to step in and do the work, which is what I'm willing to do.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen it in my own work, when I've run groups and I've, had men in the program and they've come to the group calls. There's a little bit of that, kind of like, whoa, like having
Yeah.
to reconfigure the cellular level of like, okay, I'm going to be open to this. But, again and again and again, both sides of the aisle. Wow, that was so healing to be able to be in conversation, with a man and to be able to see, to challenge the narratives that we hold about men as always being bad or perpetrators or out to get something and whatever the narratives and the stories are. And so, yeah, being unified and coming together individually, men with men, women with women, and then collectively, I think is such a beautiful thing. And I'm just curious how this has played out for you in your life, in your relationships with your siblings. Has there been restoration? Is it still a struggle? What does that look like today?
I will tell you, for instance, with the book Helplessness, it's from a brother's perspective, but 3 of my sisters contribute to the book.
Oh my
2 of my
gosh.
brothers contribute to the book. So you're going to get a full family view, and our recollections will differ from person to person, from gender to gender, from brother to sister. But for
Yeah.
my sisters to participate, and they are participating in the next book, Hopefulness, and they're participating in the last book, Happiness.
Mhm.
My relationship with 3 of my sisters are now amazing. It took me 45 years to get to the point to where I could talk to them. I was so afraid to
Yeah.
talk to them because, I had already been told you can't talk about it, but I knew I needed to write something. And
Mhm.
Rachel, I would pick up the phone to call. That thing weighed 10,000 pounds. I'd set it down because I was
Yeah.
afraid of what was going to come back at me.
Mm.
But time can, it doesn't always, time can do a lot of healing. And with time, you oftentimes get a different understanding, a different perspective. And so when I finally got to speaking to my sisters, they were so embracing. They were so welcoming. I couldn't believe it because we still hadn't had the conversation. Uh, my brothers, 2 of my brothers, they are still finding their way through.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but that was only because I was willing to make the call.
Mhm. Mhm.
We
Yes.
would be around each other at family events, but until I talked to them about it, it was always, well, let me stay back over here a bit.
Yeah. There was a
What are they,
distance.
yeah, what are
Yeah.
they thinking about me when they see me?
Yeah.
There were plenty of things I could have done, should have done. And I was just so locked down, afraid to do anything.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's wonderful to be involved with 3 of my sisters. Our families are very close. We do a lot of things together that 10 years ago we would never have done.
Wow. Well, cheers to that. And yeah, what a testament to that little moment of like vulnerability and bravery. And I'm just gonna do it because yeah, there's like, it takes time and it takes the time that it takes. for us to sometimes be ready,
Yeah, but
to
you
open
have to be
the book.
willing to, you have to be
Gotta
willing
go.
to take the step, take the
Yeah,
lead.
yeah, yeah.
There's a book, a best-selling book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I would pick up the phone. It took me a month to call each of my sisters. I was so afraid to talk to them about it. Uh, but I knew if I was going to do anything, I could not move forward without talking to them. And
Right.
so we were able to do that.
Keeper, when you think out 5 years from now and you think about the vision that you have and what you hope to see, existing in the world as a result of your voice and your efforts and your story and your books, tell me a little bit about that vision. What do you hope to see down the road?
Well, Rachel, what I hope to see is a better understanding, certainly on the topic
Mhm.
with women and men and brothers and sisters. That's really what I want to happen. I want brothers to have an elevated voice in the conversation 5 years from now. But I also wanted to be able to heal the families of those that have been traumatized, be it if you're a direct victim or an indirect victim. I want to be able to see, one of my big dreams is to create that first set of tools or systems that assist brothers. And as we move out in this conversation 5 years from now, I really envision a situation where I am on stage with my three sisters and my brothers, and we are talking about this wherever it goes. If
Yeah.
it stays nice and tight, great. But if it goes sideways, that's the way it's supposed to.
Mm, mm.
But to be able to see people to see, okay, this is what a family went through. And now look at them. They're up there together talking about this. They're up there
Yes.
together expressing and showing that it can heal if we are willing
Mhm.
to be able to talk. So that is really what I'd like to see 5 years from now. I think I can make that work because I think for me, my family's trauma, our experience does not need to end in tragedy. It could be
Right on.
used to help other families. And
Yeah.
that is at the core of what I want to do. It took some of my siblings a while to wrap their head around that because
Mhm.
it might mean that they need to step out of themselves a little bit, because in order for us to heal, we need to be able to be vulnerable and tell our own individual stories. Not
That's right.
always easy, as you know,
That's right.
but for the world to see a family talking about it together, brothers and sisters side by side together, I think could be a very, very powerful message.
Oh my gosh, you're making me tear up, Keeper. This is too much. It's too much. I adore you, world changer, and I see you and I support you. And if there's anything I can do to, support you in that vision, I am here, an ally in that, and just a champion of your vision and your effort, because it is so important that we understand the more everybody is healed, the better off our world is. When
Yeah,
we leave anyone behind in the conversation, we are missing the point.
yeah. And brothers are left behind in the conversation.
Yeah. So let's put an end to that. And this is a beautiful start to that. And when does your book come out?
My book would be out third quarter of this year.
Okay, great. So right around when this is coming out. And
Yep.
so folks listening, please pop over and check out Keeper's website, Keeper Catran-Whitney and .com. And I'll be sure to put the link there in the show notes. Keeper, do you have any final words for our listeners today?
Well, the final thing I think I would say is it's okay. Really, it is okay what you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with it, especially for you men. Don't get bogged down in people might know that I'm vulnerable or that I'm hurting, or all of that stuff is trivial. All of that stuff is just commentary. The real story is, what do I need to do to not only heal me, but to heal relationships with my sisters, and then we can heal the family. It is all right. That is the big thing. My wife is the one who told me that I was a sexual abuse victim. I had no idea until 8 years ago. We were in bed and I'm telling her, I want to talk to my sisters about this. I really want to talk to them. And she says, you're a victim. And I said, no, I'm not.
No,
She
I'm
said,
not.
yes, you
Right?
are. I'm like, no, I just want
Yeah.
to talk to them. She says, look at you. You're a mess just talking about
Mm.
this. You are a victim. I had
Yes.
been sexually abused by my babysitter, and I still did not recognize that I was a victim until 8 years ago,
Right.
because there was that denial. So for brothers, it's okay. Really, it's all right to move away from the denial.
Yeah.
Talk to someone. Find at least one person that you can talk to. Give
Yeah.
Rachel a call. She is fantastic. Talk to
Cheers.
her.
I'm down for it.
This is what she
Yes.
does. She is perfect, because
Mhm.
I'll tell you, not everyone is as open about this. I spoke to 3 therapists, and they told me female therapists, and they told me they could not help me because I was a man.
Damn.
Oh,
That's so terrible, right? Absolutely. Brothers, men, your stories matter.
yeah,
Your experience matters. You deserve healing, support, and resources, and care, and loving and nurturing. So reach out to me, reach out to Keeper, be in touch. And Keeper, again, just thank you so much for your time, for your story, for your wisdom. And I look forward to staying in touch with you.
definitely look forward to staying in touch with you. I will need to come to your part of California.
Yes, come visit San Francisco.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining us today. As always, you can pop over to rachelgrantcoaching.com to learn more about sexual abuse recovery coaching and explore the resources on the site. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then come back next time, because we have so much more to share. And until then, take good care of you.